let's get to the VAT. You've talked about the structure of it. I mean, because we need to talk about the book that you've written. Briefly, what's wrong with that structure? How difficult is it to correct?
When we introduce first we introduce the GET Fund. Mm-hmm. The goal was to actually increase the VAT rate. Dr. Terkper was giving the history. He was the Minister for Finance, right? It was difficult, Terkper and all that. So the decision was made that it must be purposeful if the VAT rate was going to be increased, and therefore dedicate the flows, to education. Right, President Kufuor's turn came, and they had to also increase the VAT to the optimal 15 or 17.5. So again, the only way it could be done, given the VAT history, Terkper and all that, which is this time the MPP, right, was to dedicate it to health. But you see, the distinction between taking them out as straight levies, right, which was done, is that you deny them the input tax credit. Right. So the NHIL law and the GET Fund law defined those levies as though they were VAT. So they were collected at a rate. And that is why you send a formula to Parliament for those two, earmarked, for Parliament to determine the distribution, just like DACF and other. Yes. But in all probability, it's VAT. And you get a credit, you get a refund. Yeah. Just like the mainstream VAT.
What has changed?
So what changed was removing it and making a straight levy. In the case of levies, you don't get credit.
Yeah.
The example, you buy a camera and all those things, screens, for the studio. You are not a consumer. It's a consumption tax, remember?
Yeah.
You are a business. So you pay VAT. And then when you do adverts, you charge VAT. Right? But you have added your cost, your profit and others, to determine the price of the advert. The VAT is just additional, right? So you are giving a credit for the VAT you paid on the input. This is the strength of the VAT. So you don't add the VAT to cost. Once you remove it and make it a levy, all levies, excise, everything, go back into as cost before you calculate the VAT.
How difficult is it to change the current system? How difficult is it?
No, we have to change it over time. That's why you have to.
Why over time? How difficult is it?
Because that's our experience. When a VAT was introduced, remember it was sweeping, right? And because it was sweeping, touching goods and services that were not previously in the scheme. Retail was not. When it spoke about the sales tax, it ended at the manufacturing level. It left our wholesale, left our retail. So it was felt that this tax is just too pervasive.
So right? Over a period, over time, over what time?
Usually is 2 to 3 years. You should be able to.
3 years.
Yeah, because you are removing a revenue handle, however inefficient, and then you are improving the VAT, right? And so you are replacing the revenue first. Before, once you've simplified it, you have the goal. Sometimes it can be like 18 months, 1 year, because we have had the experience and the VAT. We don't have to go to 3 years, because we have implemented. The problem again is that we did customs automation.
Yes.
But we stopped from 2017 to do the domestic tax automation, which is ITAS. So if you introduce ITAS, remember the example of I gave of multimedia claiming back the tax because they are not the consumer. The importer is not the consumer. In most cases, if you are a consumer, you pay, the import VAT, and that's it. Case closed. The businesses have the right to claim it. Now, how do you check when I claim 120 instead of 100? Right? One way of improving it and filling the gap is to automate the domestic tax system. So when you file and you claim 120 instead of 100, your customs return using your tax ID number or your national ID number or your business number, we pull that information for audit purposes to see whether, so that takes us into the administrative element, right? Okay. Which was also streamlined. That's the creation of the National Revenue Secretariat, which was an Ministry of Finance at the time, but autonomous and vested with more operational powers to do the reforms. Remember, we took IRS and SEPS. The history is, a short version is here. And we created IRS and then SEPs to replace the income tax department and the customs department under Ministry of Finance. And the purpose is to give them more operational powers. We often say that even our US IRS can challenge the president. That's the power you are giving them.